Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, goodness.
I don't know what Discord's fucking issue is with my mic.
Oh, is it a Discord thing?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like last time it was working, this time it's not working. Fucking technology's just a fickle bitch.
Yeah, I'm not so sure what Discord's doing where it's causing an issue because I remember last time it was clipping our audio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was saving up all of my audio to send to you in a nice little package.
Yeah, that shit was crazy sounding.
So
Oh,
tell me
God.
tell me about this mystery text.
Oh, yeah. So, like, while I was getting off of FaceTime with you because Autumn wanted to FaceTime you or whatever,
Yeah.
so I like get a call and it says it's from you, but I was like, that's odd. Maybe he just like accidentally dialed the number again or something like that. So I just hung up. And then it called back and it said it was you. And then I picked up. I was like, hello.
Yeah.
And it sounded like a Hispanic woman, like an older Hispanic woman. And I thought it was you fucking with me.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then
Oh
so I
no.
was like, I was like, I know it's you. And then I just hung up the phone.
We just like, does Gary not know that like everything has caller ID?
Yeah, I was like, maybe he's like trying to like fuck with me. I don't know. But I was like, oh
Well,
well. And then
if
like they texted back and like, well, it said what was it said? It said trying to FaceTime me with 4 question marks. Who is this? 5 question marks. And I just
yeah.
like I just put ha ha, like is he still trying to fuck with me? Like,
Well, the funny thing
so
is,
whoever is texting, I just sent him a ha ha back to him.
like I got a notification like in the text log that said Wesley laugh reacted to, and then her text or that person's text, but I never saw that person's text. So you saw it and reacted to it, and then it told me that you reacted to it in our text log. So I have no fucking clue what that's about.
Let me see. I'll take a screenshot of it and send it to you.
Yeah, because it's definitely I don't see it anywhere in here. I don't even
Yeah,
see where you reacted to it.
it was just super strange. I was like, what?
Very weird.
There you go. I
Yeah,
sent it to
that's
you.
fucking weird. It's like all mixed in with my texts.
Yeah, it's strange, huh?
Yeah, it's
Because I'm
fucking
pretty
weird.
sure that I only have just the number that your new number.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like,
No, I don't.
oh, do you have my old number too in my
Yeah.
contact?
Does
Oh,
your new one start with a 6 or a 4?
my new one starts with a 6. The old one starts with a 4.
Yeah, so somebody got that. I'll go in and
Somebody's got my old number.
yeah. Let's see.
uh, do you remember?
I'll go back and change that later. I'll edit
I,
it later.
I remember when me and Aaron both got cell phones around the same time, and Aaron has had the same phone number ever since then. And that he was in like, God, he must have been in like 7th or 8th grade. It was a long time ago. And ever since he's had that number, he's been getting phone calls for some guy named James Class. Like it's like, I don't know, 16, 20 times a year. And it's like he'll get this phone call. And it's like, this is a phone call for James Class. If you're not James Class, please hang up now. And Aaron's like, I don't know who this fucking James Class guy is, but somebody's really trying to get a hold of him.
It's probably like the IRS.
Yeah.
Little does he know, Aaron's like sending this guy to federal prison.
He's gonna get fucking swatted one day. Like, we've been calling you for 10 years.
Oh God. Alrighty. Well, I guess I'll bring us in this time. Welcome back, everybody. This is the 12th episode of the Thicc Bois pod. It's 12, right?
Yeah, number 12.
Yeah, this is number 12, the 12th episode of the Thicc Bois podcast. Thank you for joining us. Once again, we are going to be doing this remotely. We had some family members come down with the funk.
Who come down with the funk?
Yeah, the funk.
Like, Mr. Right, I'm sorry to tell you this, but y'all funky.
He puts
This
on
is
like
like
a fuzzy purple hat.
some other doctor comes in like playing this sick slap bass line. Like,
Time to
oh,
get funky, funky,
the
funky, funky.
the doctor told me I was funky as hell. Yeah, we're experiencing. I guess this is round two of COVID.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
Is this,
Yeah, we took Allison's taken 3 home tests. I've taken 2. All of them have come back negative. We gave one to Autumn, and it came back negative. And then
no?
yesterday we went and got a PCR test at Walgreens.
What is that? What's a PCR
The
test?
PCR test is like the lab test. It's the one that takes longer for them to send it off and get the culture done and everything.
So it's like supposed to be more accurate or something.
I don't know if it's more accurate, but from what I've heard, and I don't know if this is the case, but I know that some of the in-home rapid antigen tests are returning like false negatives or something like that.
Oh,
So we just wanted to check and make sure.
well, last year when I had COVID, um, I think I went and got three. I got 3 tests. They all came back negative. And after my third negative one, I went and got them because Mary had tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing was, my job was like, okay, well, your wife tested positive. You need to quarantine.
Yeah.
So I couldn't go to work for like 2 weeks. And thankfully I was able to work from home. But so I got 3 tests. They all came back negative. And then I started showing symptoms about three or 4 days after my last negative test. And I had symptoms for probably maybe not even a week, maybe 4 days tops. It finally kicked it. And I went and got another test and it came back positive. So I'm guessing that the virus had incubated, was still in my system, but I was like on the tail end of it or whatever. And then maybe a week after that, I went and got tested again and it came back negative. So it was really just like a whirlwind of like, do I have it? Do I not have it?
Yeah. Well, I know that we took, when did the first one we took was like earlier in the week. So it's been like Tuesday or something like that. Because Allison kind of started feeling a little bit bad. So we're like, well, let's go ahead and take a home test and find out. And it came back negative.
All right.
And then so I ended up getting 2 of them. And then like the next day, or I won't say who got it, but when the person who has it texted the group chat and said that they had it, we took the second one and it came back negative.
Yeah.
And then we went and got the PCR test done just to make sure. And then Allison and Autumn took one probably about an hour ago, but that's just because we wanted to see whether or not, if either one of them had it, then, Autumn can't go to daycare and all that kind of stuff, because we don't want to expose anybody else to it. But I highly doubt that if I've taken 2 negatives, Allison's taken 3 negatives, and Autumn's came back negative, I'm pretty sure that we're all negative.
Probably.
So I mean, I don't know what the chances are of, me testing negative twice and Allison testing negative 3 times. But I would say testing negative 3 times and still having it is probably an anomaly.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying. I went and got tested after Mary tested positive and had 3 negative tests before I ever started showing any symptoms.
But so, how long were you waiting before you went and got the test? Or how long between when you took the test and when you started showing symptoms?
So it's kind of hard to say. It's a bit of a blur. I want to say Mary tested positive, and I went and got, when she found out. Oh, no. I take that back. Okay. Mary found out that she was around somebody who tested positive.
Mm-hmm.
So she went and got a test. It came back negative. I went and got a test. Came back negative. And then I think she started showing symptoms, and then she went and got tested and it came back positive. I went and got tested. It came back negative. And then I think like 4 days later, I tested again and it came back negative. And then like the day after that last negative test, I started showing symptoms.
Yeah. Well, I know for us, it's been about a week. So I'd have to say, I think we're probably in the clear. I think we're probably fine. Plus that, I mean, we've had the vaccine and everything. So, I mean, we've
Yeah.
done everything that we can do to
Yeah.
try to mitigate any risks or anything like that. So, I mean, really at this point, it's,
Now I'll admit I got a little lax on wearing the mask there for a while because the CDC said, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear your mask indoors. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm not wearing this stupid thing anymore.
yeah.
Unless, the thing was unless they had a sign that said everybody needs to wear one, I wore one.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, okay, it's like cases are spiking again. Like I'm just going to wear my mask just to be safe.
Yeah. It's odd, right? It's odd that, that there's more variants this quickly. And it seems like to me that this seems more like a summer flu type deal, like a more harsh summer flu. Like the flu is very prevalent during like the fall and the winter, whereas like last year the cases kind of spiked during the summer.
Yeah.
And then this year during the summer they're spiking again.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's just an anomaly or if, that's just, I don't know if it's causation, you know what I mean?
Well, think about, it's summertime, people are going out and getting around each other again.
That's true.
I mean, Lollapalooza was last week, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Did you see the pictures from that?
I did. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
A lot, like fucking packed like sardines in a can next to each other.
Yeah. Well, I know that I saw where New York is like doing this thing now where you have to like show proof of a vaccine before you can like go to a restaurant or like go to like a gym or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the person in our family who got it is vaccinated.
True.
And they got it anyway. So, I mean, and now they did, breakthrough infections are possible. I think they're possible with any, thing that you can be inoculated against.
Yeah, but I think if you're vaccinated against it, it probably proves less. I don't want to say deadly because deadly is not the word I'm looking for. What is it that I'm looking for here?
Like potent?
Yeah, less potent, maybe.
Yeah.
I think because your body has already been introduced to it or whatever. Like your body kind of knows what to do with it. You know what I mean?
Well,
I mean,
I'm pretty
not saying that like the variants and stuff aren't, they don't, the spike protein or whatever it is that causes it to attach to your cells or whatever. I'm not saying that it doesn't. And this is my very limited knowledge of biology. I'm certainly not a biologist, but it seems like if you have a vaccine against something, sort of like the year that they had the real bad flu outbreak was like 2017, 18. And a bunch of people were getting real sick off the flu.
Yeah.
And they were saying that even, people who did get the flu vaccine were still getting sick and stuff, but they weren't getting as sick as people who did not get the vaccine.
Yeah.
So I think your body is it's a little bit different, but at the same time, your body kind of understands what it is I think the big thing is like your body doesn't know what it is and it doesn't know how to fight it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the way vaccines, I think, typically work is, they inject you with like basically a defunct, I guess, portion of the virus that your body can attack. And then your body's like, okay, I know how to kill this thing. So the next time it shows up, your T cells and your whatever white blood cells and everything just kick it like it's nothing at all. Mm-hmm. And the way that I'm pretty sure, because we all had the Pfizer vaccine, I'm pretty sure.
I think it was Pfizer. Yeah,
the mRNA vaccine. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure that the way this one works is if you've ever seen like the like the 3D render of like what a coronavirus cell looks like, it's got all those little like pointy bits coming off of it. Mm-hmm. And those are the spike proteins that attach to your cells. So the mRNA virus or vaccine doesn't necessarily attack the COVID virus itself. It attacks all those little legs that are around it and breaks down that protein shell around the outside of the virus, which, if the virus can't attach to your cells, then it can't do anything.
Yeah, essentially just floating in there. It doesn't have a host to attach to.
Yeah, which I think is part of the reason why they say that people who are vaccinated can still spread the virus.
Yeah. Is it that it attacks the virus, or is it that it essentially covers the receptors?
I have no idea. I,
Yeah,
I'm just,
it's one of the two.
yeah, it's just bits and pieces that I've picked
Yeah.
up through this whole fucking debacle. I mean, we're going
Yeah.
on 2 years now, and I feel like I haven't gotten a straight answer on anything.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like and this is kind of getting off track or whatever. But I think the thing is like they still don't kind of know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is just them kind of making it up as they go along.
Yeah.
As far as like what you should do, precautions you should take, and that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, dude. I remember when all this really started kicking off in the States around like May or March through May, April, all those around that time. But last year in 2020, it felt like every week we were getting some new information, like you should do this, and then it would be like, okay, we're wrong about that. Don't do that, but do this.
Yeah.
And it was like, that was, to me personally, that was the scary part. Was like, okay, they don't really know.
I feel like it's more damning for them to come out and continuously like change. You know what I'm saying? I think the thing is like when somebody comes out and you look at them as a, like they're the expert in this field and that kind of thing. It's okay to be an expert in a field and say, I don't know right now, but as soon as I know more, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what it is
you think that's where all this mistrust kind of came from?
I think so. I think
I
think a lot of it, where it came from is where Fauci originally came out and essentially said, you don't need to wear the masks and all that stuff. And it come to find out, I think this might be horse shit, but essentially they were trying to preserve N95s and masks and stuff like that for first responders, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that if they'd come out and said, we don't know, masks seem to be, have a way of minimizing your exposure or minimizing the risk of you catching this or whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't have the inventory right now for everybody to have one. I just feel like if our elected officials and their cabinet or in the people who they appoint to the head of like the FDA and, the IRS, that kind of stuff, because those aren't, those positions aren't voted on. Those positions are appointed by the elected officials. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like if they were more sincere or more transparent, I think there wouldn't be as much mistrust. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Because it was, it's never one. It's like you said, it's never a situation where they come forward and they say, we don't know. It's always definitively, they always give a definitive answer. And then it's either proven to be wrong or proven to be right. It's one of those two things. They never come forward and be like, we don't really know, but you should do this anyway, just to be safe. And nothing like that. That's why everything that was coming out of the CDC was always like, it was like, you need to do this, you need to do, X, Y, Z. And then the next week it was stop doing X, Y, Z and start doing ABC.
Yeah. And if they change it enough times, eventually, you're going to be like, well, what's the truth? What's really going on here? You know what I mean?
And that's why, that's why I think where a lot of this mistrust comes from. A lot of people think like, okay, well, the people who are supposedly in charge don't have any fucking clue what's going on.
Yeah.
And, so there's this huge pushback against getting the COVID vaccine. And it's just, some of it, is based in, reality. It's like, do I personally know what all is in the vaccine? No, I don't. But I trust the people that made it to know what they're doing. And on the other token is you have people who are saying, you don't know what all is in that vaccine, but I heard, let me tell you, there's a guy at work and he told me with a straight face that they put a little bit of HIV in the vaccine.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like I don't know what he meant by like a little bit,
A
like
little bit.
like a
splash.
teaspoon, a little splash, a little spritz of HIV.
A pinch of HIV. Like you like stand over a fucking cauldron like a witch.
Yeah. What was that guy?
Some eye of newt.
It was like what was it? Salt Bay.
Yeah.
Just a little sprinkling of HIV in the vaccine there. But I think that's indicative of a larger issue. He said that with full sincerity. So if there's one guy who thinks that, there's several people who think that. So you got all these people that are walking around thinking that there's HIV in the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. The thing is too, is I think that when you look at it, this person believes that, but at the same time, it's like where that mistrust doesn't just come on all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like mistrust like that is built up over time.
Yeah.
So when somebody feels like they've been, when somebody feels like they've been misled, or they've been, the truth has been withheld, or they feel like they've been slighted or something like that. It's some type of like nefarious activity behind the scenes. And the thing is that I can't quite say that they're idiots, because there has been a lot of there's a lot of history of the U.S. government doing things that are nefarious.
Absolutely. I think that a little bit of mistrust in the government, perhaps from a little bit to a lot, is healthy.
Yes.
I think that I don't think that you should take.
I also think that it's not great that we have this amalgamation of government and healthcare. I don't think that that's a good thing. I don't think it, because when you talk about government is political, and when you talk about politics is lies. It's lies and twisting the truth to be able to fit the narrative, right?
Yeah.
So at least that's current day politics. That's not, I'm sure that
that's
throughout
the reality,
history,
that's the reality of our politics.
Exactly. So when everybody kind of sees it, it's not kind of talked about, but through years and years and years, it was sort of like was it Operation Northwoods, where they were going to blow up a fucking airliner like over like Miami or something like that, and blame it on Cuba so that they could start a war with Cuba.
Oh, was this like during the 60s?
Yeah. Like the CIA was going to do that. Yeah, that's actually, you can go and find that. That's declassified information now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's things like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's things like that. It's also like the Branch Davidians, where the ATF, those pieces of shit,
went in there, burned all those people alive.
Went in there and burned all those fucking people alive, right? So,
or the Ruby Ridge incident.
Yep, Ruby Ridge, which was right before the Waco incident.
Yeah,
right.
They fucking sniped that dude's wife in the head.
Yeah. So,
for anybody that doesn't know, you should look it up for yourself, the Ruby Ridge incident. But here's like a quick rundown of what happened. Some guy decided that he and his family were going to go live off the grid, and they were all murdered for it.
Yeah, that's essentially the long and short of it.
The government
was like, no, you're not, and then they killed all of them.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't. They might not killed all of them, but I know they killed his wife, and I think they took the kids into custody, right?
No, they ended up taking him into custody.
Yeah,
they got him, but they ended up killing his wife and his daughter.
That's right.
And his dog too.
Yep. Yeah, it's
so like I said, there's a certain level of mistrust in the government is healthy, and
it's
I think
absolutely healthy. Well, I mean,
it's warranted.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Bush and going into fucking Iraq, saying that there's weapons of mass destruction, and come to find out that absolutely was not true.
Yeah, it turns out they're just sand people living under rocks.
Yeah, it's
no, they don't have any weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, and so it's just incidents like that over an extended period of time that you see the government and the way that the government essentially will twist information in order to make it look good for themselves. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Where I'm not saying that everything that the government does is evil or
Yeah.
that it's a bad thing, but at
There's
the
not
same time,
nefarious intent behind literally everything.
yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I've seen enough of it to kind of question when they tell me something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is healthy. I think that's a healthy thing to do, but at the same time, you can get lost in the sauce.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's easy if you're not grounded in reality in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form, you can go down that rabbit hole, and it's really hard to get out of.
Well, you're also going to start seeing patterns too. It's like it's confirmation bias is a bitch. We talk about confirmation bias a lot on this podcast, but it's a very dangerous thing that you have to be aware that that's what you're looking at. You have to understand the difference between finding things that prove you right and finding things that confirm your bias.
Exactly.
And it's really hard to do that, especially if you're like 100% like tunnel vision focused in on this one way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think a lot of people, I think that's why they get so calloused in their way of thinking, because there's so much confirmation bias out there.
Oh,
and
absolutely. It's everywhere. Right?
It doesn't take a lot for them to get that little fix. Like all you got to do is Google search the thing you're looking for, find a link. Don't even click on it. Find a link that in the title says what you think and say, there it is. I'm right.
Yeah. It'd be like coronavirus vaccine. And then you could put in like cancer or something like that.
Yeah.
And of course, it's something's going to pop up where it's like, it caused cancer, like anal cancer or something like that.
Yeah. And like this one dude.
Exactly. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, if that does happen, obviously that's something that should be looked into. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not outliers and that kind of stuff. Cause I don't want to misrepresent, or I don't want to mitigate people who have had adverse reactions to the vaccine, because there are people out there. There's so many people that have gotten the vaccine that you can't account for everything that could possibly go wrong because of different circumstances, right?
Well, here's another thing too, is you're only going to see articles written about the times where the vaccine went wrong. If they're not going to do an article for literally every single person who went and got the vaccine and nothing happened. If that was the case, you'd have upwards of millions of articles saying that nothing happened compared to the 15 or 20 where something did happen.
Correct. Yeah. And I think the thing is too, is that and I kind of read about this, but there's an anti-parasitic drug called ivermectin.
Yeah.
That I think in places in South America and a couple other places, they've actually had very good success as far as catching the coronavirus early and using this medicine to treat it. And I think it was a pretty high percentage of them that made a pretty rapid recovery, and it kind of went away and they didn't have any lasting effects from it. But it's not being talked about, right?
Yeah.
So at the same time, you have to go, why is this not being talked about? What's going on here?
Well, a lot of that too could be because it's not sensational.
Yeah. Or, it could be the fact that this particular drug is not under patent anymore. So, so you can't make any money off of it.
Yeah, could also be that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts that you have to you have to sit back and take a look at it, right? You have to sit back and say, you kind of have to remove yourself from the situation. You have to analyze the data as you're seeing it. You can't be attached to your opinions 100% of the time, all the time.
Yeah. Another thing that you hear is, coronavirus has I think it's like a 98, it might be 97% survivability rate right now. But, that's out of all the people who have been infected. Well, if you take a look at the numbers of infected people.
Is that out of the people who have been infected or the people that they've tested positive in? Because I know that they said that. Yeah, they said that it might be higher depending upon the people that were asymptomatic, that didn't show signs, right?
But the fact of the matter is, the number of people who have died from COVID is very high.
Yes.
It's in the millions. I think it's like 5 million or something like that. That might be wrong. So
yeah, and I think too it was people who were kind of predisposed to like certain
yeah, like elderly people and people who
yeah,
are like morbidly obese and like diabetic and all that stuff.
yeah.
But the fact remains
People
that it
whose
has
immune
killed a lot of
system is
people.
already compromised, right?
Yeah, but like I said, the fact remains it has killed a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have died as soon as they did if COVID was never a thing.
Yeah.
So, but then again, there's another part of that where it's like, okay, well, how many of those deaths were really because of COVID? Because there was that whole thing where they found out that they were marking deaths, as COVID.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah,
Um,
they're marketing them as COVID. Like, and I don't know if this is true or not, but
yeah.
it's
Well, see, that's the thing.
yeah,
I don't know if it's true.
right. Yeah, correct.
There's no way for me to know if it's true. So something like that, you kind of have to, it, just kind of take your best guess. But
Yeah.
to believe that they're putting HIV in the COVID vaccine,
that's way out in left field.
yeah, and genuinely believing that, I think that's a problem.
Did you ask him if he'd been taken up by aliens and anally probed?
I didn't speak to him anymore after he said that.
He just walked away.
Yeah, there's like, a
I
lost
can't
cause.
I can't have a conversation with you.
It's like the fucking when somebody says something like that, just so confidently, it's like there's nothing that I could ever do to bring you back to reality.
Oh no,
you're a lost cause. I'm sorry, but you are. That's the way I feel about it. It's like fucking flat earthers. I went to a Mexican restaurant.
I thought you were going to say I went to a flat earth convention.
Oh my God, I should. I fucking should.
We should do a podcast at a flat earth convention.
Yes, we should. Dude.
We should do like a change my mind type deal.
Yeah. But I went to a Mexican restaurant one time. I just like went there on lunch one day. And the booth next to mine was these two guys. And one of them was talking. The other one he never said anything that I heard. The other guy that was talking was, I guess, trying to convince or convey his opinions on why he knows that the earth is flat. And he's, spouting off all these different things. And he was doing this crazy shit where he would pick these like pseudoscientific things that confirmed his bias, right?
Yeah.
And then in the same breath, he would pick these things out of the Bible that confirmed his bias.
Oh God.
So he kind of had like his fingers in all of these different pies in just the right way.
Yeah.
That it made him seem right. So he's cherry picking all the little tidbits of information that, would make him seem right.
Well, and I think
so it's like those people, when you counter one of their arguments, they've always got something in the pocket to throw back at you. And it's always ridiculous. But the point is they've always got something.
Yeah. That's the thing is that you can't have like an open conversation where you don't have a specified goal in mind. Right.
Yeah.
So it seems like a lot of people now, they have a specified goal in mind when they start a conversation with you, where it's like they're trying to convince you of one way or another, rather than just an exchange of ideas.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what that was. The other guy he couldn't get a word in edgewise. He was just having to eat his burrito and hear about, how the Antarctic Circle is, stretches around the whole Earth and goes off into infinity, and the sun is in a bulb. I don't know. It's just
who knows.
There's such a vast gap between the scientists that are building the telescope that's going to replace the Hubble telescope, and it's going to fly out and unfold itself 350 times over the course of 5 weeks and take incredible pictures of the galaxy. And then a dude sitting in a Mexican restaurant trying to tell some other guy that the earth is flat.
Yeah. Where it's like, if you honestly think that the earth is flat, why don't you come up with some type of data collection tool that proves your point, right?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because there's a documentary on Netflix a while back where it followed these flat earthers that kept trying to prove that the earth was flat, and they kept using real science and real mathematics and physics and I never get these right. What's the one that's the study of space, and the one that girls with dyed hair think?
Astrology is like Sagittarius, Virgo, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so astronomy.
Yeah, astronomy is like the study of, like, I think
Gotcha.
space.
Okay, so they're using, like, astronomy and all these real things to try and prove themselves, right. To their credit, they were using real, not pseudoscience, all that shit.
Yeah.
And every turn, they're proving themselves wrong. And no matter how many times they proved themselves wrong, they kept moving on to some new experiment, and they just kept proving themselves wrong.
They're like, one of these is going to work.
Yeah. And see, that's the thing. If they would have come to an experiment that, that the math proved them, right, or was within a reasonable, of doubt that they were right.
Yeah.
That's where they would have stopped.
We told you.
Yeah. That's where they would have stopped.
Yeah.
They would have forgot all about the myriad other experiments that proved them wrong, and they would have just held up this one thing and, like, we were right.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Also,
I mean, that's really the human nature, is to be able to prove yourself right.
Yeah.
Which actually,
fail until you succeed, I guess.
Yeah. Which actually, did you look up what I sent you the other day?
Are you talking about ego death?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
I thought it was fascinating.
It is interesting. It seems to me very it's a school of thinking that seems very Buddhist to me. Almost kind of nihilistic as well. And a lot of the concepts are very lofty, but it's like I don't really know if I can explain it very well. So why don't you give it a shot?
Okay. So the reason why I brought this up is because I'm not going to say I've experienced ego death, but the best way I can describe it is being deep. I was essentially deep in thought. Like, I don't remember what it was I was thinking about. But essentially, like, it was, I don't know if everybody does this, but I tend to do this thing where, like, you'll start thinking about something, right? Like, you'll think about something that happened or something that happened to you, and you do this thing where you're examining it through the lens of all of the experiences that you've had up until the point essentially where you're at now. So that kind of, like, helps to shape who you are. That helps to shape your thought process, your thought patterns, essentially how you interact with the world. And essentially what happened to me, and no, this was not drug induced. It was
you didn't, like, astral project?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to explain. So essentially I was doing this thing where I was, like, in deep thought about something. I can't quite remember what. And all of a sudden I just kind of asked myself, is this really who you are? Like, something said that. It's hard to explain. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's what I was saying, is the concept of ego death is very lofty. It's very
so it was almost as if, the best way I can describe it is, like, I was sitting there thinking about this concept or this idea, and I'm trying very hard not to be pretentious about this. So I truly apologize if I do sound pretentious. It was almost as if, like, I kind of took a step back and I saw myself. Like, the way I explained this to somebody else was, imagine that you are looking at yourself at, like, in an interrogation room, right? Like, it's easy to observe other people, to see their faults, to see what's wrong with them, be like, why can't they take a step back and see all these other things, or be able to view something from a logical manner, right? But you're never really able to do it to yourself because you're the one that's living within your ego, right?
It's the main it's the main character
Yeah.
paradox.
Yeah. So your ego essentially drives you forward. It allows you to be the person that that you are, to have all of these rules and regulations in which you go forward with. And don't get me wrong, your ego is very important. It allows you to survive essentially, right? But
Well, yeah, I mean, it has its place. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
it's in like a social, you know, yes, in a sociological sphere that we live in, you have so they draw these correlations between your ego being your personality, and your personality is like a set of tools that you use to navigate society.
Yes. Mhm. So essentially, what mine was almost as if I was looking at myself sitting in this chair with this thought in my head, and I was kind of like examining myself, but it's really hard to explain.
It's the fact that it's in that moment where you are looking at yourself, almost as a third party.
Yeah. So
That is ego death. So
yeah.
what I read, or what I was able to surmise from the whole thing, like I watched a couple videos. I wish I could remember the name of the one guy I watched. His like Alan something. Alan Watts, I want to say, but that might not be right. And I read, on the Wikipedia page for it and everything. It's, you know, it's like what I said earlier. It's the main character paradox. So everybody thinks, that they're the main character
Mhm.
because that's all you know. You could never you will barring reincarnation, if you believe in that, you will never experience life any other way than how you experience.
Exactly.
Um, so the thing about ego death that I was able to kind of pick up was, it's this thing where you look at yourself, and even saying look at yourself is a bit of a misnomer, because you're not physically seeing
No,
with
yeah.
your eyes yourself.
You
It's
yeah,
kind of like
you
this
are
introspective thing.
yeah, you're examining yourself in a way that is very
You're examining yourself as you exist in the greater whole of reality.
yeah. And
And
so it is
I know that's a very, like I said, it's a very lofty thing to say, but the way to think about it is you are a part of reality. So imagine reality is existence. Imagine it as like this big mishmash of like cogs and gears, and everything's turning
yeah.
together. You are one little piece in that. You're not the whole thing.
Yeah. So the way that I kind of explained it to Allison was, I'm not this vessel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not this vessel of interactions that I've had throughout time. Like, I'm something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like
It's
giving a greater purpose to your conscience.
yeah. So
Your consciousness rather.
yeah. So I guess a really good explanation of it is essentially like when you experience ego death, the ego essentially collapses in on itself, and you essentially find this other part of who you are that essentially, um, it might have been Carl Jung who was like, it's the self. Like, you realize that you're this other thing, like, and that thing has been there the whole time. It's like, have you ever seen the movie Inside, it might be Inside Out, with it's like a Disney Pixar movie where they call the different emotions and everything?
Can I interject for a sec?
Yeah.
I think I hear your dog crying.
Yeah, she's crying. I'm gonna let her out of the room real quick, that way she'll stop whining.
She's the main character.
Yeah, she's the main character. She has not experienced the ego death. Hold on.
Coughing, sneezing, body aches. foul odor. Introducing the new COVID-19 vaccine. COVID-19 vaccine is your two-step solution to issues caused by COVID-19 and the harrowing nightmare that is being quarantined with your children.
Mommy, can we go to the...
Shut the hell up! COVID-19 vaccine is sugar-free, non-habit forming, and has just a splash of HIV to give you that immunoboost that you need. Just listen to some of these customer testimonies. Yeah, I was just sitting at home one day watching those damn protests when some feller came on the TV there. Dr. Anthony Fauci, I think it was. Anyway, he said I ought to go get me one of them vaccines, and I figured, what the hell? Jesus seems to be setting this one out anyway.
Before the COVID-19 vaccines, the police state was forcing me to stay in my home with my family. Now that I've gotten the jab, I can finally get out of the house and do what I've been wanting to do for months now.
Call your doctor today and see if the vaccine is right for you.
There we go. We can just edit that little pause out.
Okay.
But yeah, it's until I had like kind of experienced what it is, like that thought never like crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Because
it's not something
essentially, well, your ego doesn't allow that thought to cross your mind because your ego is essentially trying to keep you alive. Right.
Well, it's not something you would ever naturally think of.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to explain. Anybody listening right now, you just kind of have to look it up for yourself. And like, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I know what it is, or if I can explain it, I can't. I'm gonna just kind of explain the way I understand it. But yeah, look it up for yourself. It's very interesting.
I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
So
it's kind of like you hear about people having out of body experiences.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I've never had one. But
are you going to say hello?
Hello.
I'm keeping that.
Yep. Autumn says hello.
Hello.
Say hello to everyone. Say hello, everyone.
Hello.
Oh, you didn't know this was going to be an extra thick episode.
I didn't. Yeah. So what I was going to say is that, have you ever seen the movie Inside Out with like the Disney? It's like has all the different emotions inside the person.
No, I missed that one. I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
Do you kind of understand the concept of the movie where it's like all the different emotions are like driving the person forward?
Yeah.
Okay. So the way that I thought of it was, think of it like that, right? But instead of all these different emotions, it's just two people essentially standing behind the console of the person that's driving this person forward. There's essentially the ego, which is all of the different emotions from what I've gathered. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know if this is true or not.
Your personality.
But yeah, it's essentially is your personality. And then there is another person that's standing there. And essentially they just observe. Right. So it's essentially there are two people standing at the console, but one person has nothing to do with what's going on. They just sit and they just observe all the interactions that are happening.
So ego death is when you observe.
Yeah, it's essentially the way that I thought of it is I'm observing myself as I interact with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really hard thing to put into words. It's not something that you can really kind of boil down to its basics.
And everybody has, just from the people that I've heard talk about it, everybody kind of explains it in a different light or a different fashion.
Yeah.
But
which is interesting because, the fact that there's so many different explanations for what it is kind of speaks to the fact that the ego is a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Because like I said before, you're only ever going to experience reality the way you experience it.
Yes.
You're only ever going to experience ego death the way you experience it.
Correct.
So there's not like this baseline, this like baseline or default experience is different for everybody.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that because I when it kind of happened to me, like it was kind of like a revelation. I was like, oh shit, like I'm not this person. This is not the thing that I am. Like I am something else. Right.
Yeah.
And from just the small amount of research that I've done since kind of like having this experience or whatever, is essentially that a lot of people that have, a lot of people never experience ego death. It's not something that happens to a lot of people, or it's something that it kind of happens and they kind of brush it off. A lot of people that do experience it, it happens when they're using psychedelic drugs.
Yeah,
And
I read that. Yeah.
The issue is that there are some people that have psychotic breaks, right? While they're taking these drugs, which essentially their ego is not ready to let go. You know what I mean? It's like they're being forced into this situation where they still think they are this person or this thing that is this collection of ideas, thoughts, and experiences that they've had, where that's not necessarily the case. That's just their thoughts, ideas, and experiences. It's super hard to try to because words, there's not enough descriptive vocabulary in order for me to properly explain what.
Yeah, that was the thing I was gathering. Like as I was looking into it and I was reading all the articles and watching all the videos, it was like I feel like everything that I'm reading or hearing is right on the cusp of making me understand what this is, but it's not quite getting there.
Yeah, it's there's an author called Michael Pollan that I listened to an interview that he did, and essentially he said that there was some Dutch scientist that said, think of it as if like there's a mountain covered in snow, right? And you go down this mountain with these skis over and over and over and over. So essentially it creates these grooves, right?
Yeah.
That so essentially it's like think of it as if there's this mountain covered in snow and you have these skis, and as you're experiencing things, you experience them, you fall into these patterns of action or thoughts, right? And so he was saying that essentially, and I'm not advocating for the use of psychedelic drugs, so nobody take that as what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what he said is that essentially when people use these drugs or whatever, that is as if there's like fresh snow that has been placed into these grooves, which allows them to experience the world around them as someone other than their ego.
Right.
Right.
The way that they were experiencing.
Yeah. And from what I gathered is dependent upon how deep those grooves are and whether or not they are ready to explore outside of those grooves, it can actually be very damaging for people for that to kind of happen to them, because it's almost as if the thing or the person that you've been building towards, it's almost as if it's like
you lost it.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people have a crisis almost when this happens.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. So, who you were at age 10 and who you are at age 20 and who you are at age 30 are all very different people. And they're different because you experience new things and you have different, thoughts shaped and based around the experiences that you've had. And, each of those experiences is kind of like, a brick laid in a path. And I guess that path would be, just the path of your life. And so as you're going through life, you're walking this path, things that happen to you, you're going to react a certain way based off the experiences that you've had prior. So when you have this ego death thing, it's almost like you step off the path.
Yeah, it's almost as if you kind of like take a side step.
Yeah.
And you step off into the grass, right?
Yeah.
And you're observing the world around you, but not as yourself, but as something else.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost as if you're in, this is going to sound really stupid, probably when I say it, but it's as if you're observing the world around yourself without the ego, and it's simply just your soul.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that was another thing I read was, there's the whole concept of the soul is, humans have this, it might just be a byproduct of our intelligence because we're the most intelligent creature on the planet. We were firing on all these different neurons all the time, and we have these deep intellectual thoughts, and we have all these
except for that guy that said that they're putting HIV in the back.
Yeah, except for that guy. Yeah, he's not going down the hill on ski slopes. He's just like sliding down on his stomach,
like that penguin off of fucking Mario 64.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. You brought that fucking guy up. I lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. So,
sorry.
so humans have this, ability to do all these amazing things that other, consciences around them, the different, animals and things like that simply will never do. So we had kind of almost like we think we're higher beings.
Yeah.
But you're not. At the end of the day, you're kind of just like a bag of meat
and water. Yeah.
And, you still have to eat and shit. And you got to fuck to make more of you. The same as everything else. The exact same as everything else. All the way from, a dog down to a bug.
Yeah.
You got to eat
essentially
shit. You got to fucking die.
Yep. But yeah,
it's kind of like that realization.
It's like the realization that kind of like that's what happens, but at the same time you take a step back from it and you observe it.
That's why I was saying it's kind of nihilistic in a way.
Yeah, it's like the way that I kind of observed it was if I was from another planet and like I was observing myself.
Yeah.
Like, like, is this thing that you're getting upset about? Like, would somebody from another planet get upset about that?
Yeah.
Or is it just that you've preconditioned yourself to get upset about this thing?
Well, it's, it's just another brick on the path. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I thought the whole concept was very fascinating.
Yeah.
Because at the time when it happened to me, I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
I've never experienced anything like that. My life experiences are very face value. I've never experienced anything outside of, what I'm presented with.
Yeah. No, it's and that's the thing too, is that I don't want to say that people would be better off having experienced ego death. But at the same time, I think it answers a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So essentially it allows me to, because I think that I experienced it. I think that's what it was. Essentially, from what I've read, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But it allows it. I don't want to say all the time, because it's certainly, you can't survive as this thing that just observes all the time. That's not how this works. It's
Yeah.
like, I still have to live. I need my ego. Like, I have to have
You
it.
still have to react to things.
Yeah, I still have to react to things. But I feel like it allows me to be more present in the moment.
Does it feel like having peace of mind?
It does.
Like-
And yeah, I think the thing is that kind of like when it happened, I was like, oh, like it wasn't I don't want to say damning. It wasn't like irreparable damage done. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, it's still, I was like, I'm still myself. I'm still this person, but there's something else.
Yeah.
There's something else there.
Yeah.
It's like, and so now it's like, I'm very interested in this. It's like, I would like to be able to tap into this more. Like, I feel like there's certainly like things there that like I would like to uncover.
Now, here's an interesting way to look at it. So, earlier I said that humans kind of think of themselves as these higher beings, when in reality we're just animals like anything else. But the simple fact that you're able to experience ego death means that you do exist on a higher plane than the other creatures around you. Wouldn't that be what that means?
I think so. I think the thing that really stuck out to me about it was that, because there's consciousness, which is essentially, it's like you realize the self, you don't realize the self, you realize like, I am, right?
Yeah.
Like, I am this thing. Like, everybody realizes like, I am this thing. I am a human. I am black. I am white. I am I have a disability, or I have this thing, right? Like, you observe yourself through the eyes of society. You observe yourself as you exist. But once I think I experienced ego death, was essentially, it was almost as if, like you said, there was like a peace of mind, right? It's almost as if it's like, there's something else there. Like, there's something else on that plane.
Yeah.
Of this thought process, this rationality. I don't want to call it rationality. That's not the right word. Whatever this thing is, right? So I went through this thing where I was like, am I my brain? Is that what this is? I'm just using all these different things to move this vessel around, and to see things with, and to experience these things. Well, if that was the case, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's other animals that have brains, right? So I don't think that a frog, right? I'm sure a frog has never experienced ego death.
Yeah,
right?
a frog was never like sitting on a lily pad and was just like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, I
but
mean, it's what can you contribute your consciousness to? What can you contribute your soul to? Because everything that your brain, everything that it's when you hear something and it makes you feel a certain way. When you say you're listening to a song, and the sound of the song make you feel sad. Everything that whole entire process from hearing the song to feeling a certain way is a result of chemical and electrical reactions happening inside your brain. And those are all very physical things that are happening. They're quantifiable, and you can measure them with mathematics. So it's almost like to know that you exist higher than that.
Yeah, it's right. So all those are like physical things that happen. Like, you have neurons that are firing and everything like that. But the way that I look at it is, a song might make me feel a certain way, right? Even as like a child, like with not a whole lot of experience, right? So you take like a clean slate. You got like a 3-year-old or whatever, right? They're not totally a clean slate, but it's about as close as you can get to like them like showing emotion, or like having experiences that impact them, right? So you can have like two different 3-year-olds hear a song, it might affect one of them different than the other, which makes me think that there's something else there.
Right. And because, they're still hearing the song the same way physically. And their brain is still, making these synapses and releasing chemicals the same physical way. But there's two different experiences entirely. It's like, how can that be? It's like, if I add 2 to 2, I get 4. So you would do the same thing. You would also get 4. But there's experiences that you have beyond that you can't really contribute to, this quantifiable mathematic, thing. It's hard to explain. It's hard to get across the point I'm trying to make. But
it's a very hard subject to kind of breach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I said, there's not enough words in the English language to really dig deeper into the subject. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost I don't want to say metaphysical, but
it kind of is.
It sort of is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was fascinating.
So me myself personally, I have religious views. I consider myself, I've said before, I consider myself to be a non-denominational Christian. A lot of my religious beliefs are based in Christianity as a whole. But at the same time, there's like this logical side of me where if I think about it hard enough, I can probably attribute a lot of the things, in the Bible, like what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the experiences that characters in the Bible had, these like crazy, out of body experiences. There's a logical part of me that's like, okay, well, maybe were they experiencing ego death when that happened, or were like they having like a bad trip when, they experienced that thing, and it all just kind of came. My entire religious beliefs are they born of a bunch of crazy shit that happened to people? It's kind of a weird way to look at it.
And I think that's an important question to ask.
Yeah, I don't think it's blasphemous or hedonistic of me to question my own faith. I think that as a human being, I think that it's healthy and necessary to do that.
Absolutely. Because if you don't, then you can be persuaded by anything.
Exactly. I don't have blind faith. There's a lot of things that I'll just 100% honesty, full stop. I don't believe in a lot of the stuff that's like in the Old Testament.
Oh, no.
The logical side of me just will not grapple with that. I do. So I personally believe in the death and resurrection of Christ. I do believe in that. But like the ark, I don't know about that.
Yeah. There are certain things from the Old Testament that I believe that, and this is personal opinion. This is not me saying that this is the way that it is, but I think that there's certain stories that are in the Old Testament that those stories were told more as a teaching tool.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is really
historically
happened.
what happened.
This is historically accurate.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is too, is that the Bible's been translated how many fucking times?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So from ancient Hebrew, there's no telling how that was meant to be read.
Yeah.
Because you're reading it in modern day English.
Well, even, look at fucking languages nowadays. It's like when I started learning Chinese, I started to get a better understanding of why, Chinese to English and vice versa translations are always kind of wacky. Mm-hmm. It's because it doesn't directly translate.
Well, you can even see that with Spanish.
Well, yeah. So, I know that, German has a lot of words, like full-on words for concepts and very specific feelings. Like they might have a word for the feeling you get when you sit down next to a stranger at a bus stop. They might have a whole word for that.
Yeah.
Whereas English may not. You might have enough words to describe that feeling, but don't have a word
Yeah,
for that feeling.
Yeah, you don't have the tools in your toolkit to be able to
Yeah.
describe it. Right.
So yeah, and that's another thing. That's another part of my logical self. That's another one of those things. It's like, okay, how much of this is, has been lost in translation. It's like that. You ever play that game Telephone?
Yeah.
Where you have like a group of people and you whisper one phrase to one person and it goes around the room. And by the time it gets back to you, it's entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to feel ashamed for thinking that way. And I don't anymore. It's like, I think that, it would be asinine not to question it.
Well, and I think the thing is too, is there's a lot of cultural stigma around asking those questions.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I specifically remember like as a kid that,
well, we both grew up Southern Baptist and it was like you either believe in it or you don't.
Yeah. Well, I even remember as a kid, this is very, very specifically, I remember this incident was that I remember as like a 4 or 5-year-old, right? So we were at church and the preacher at the time was like, you will never love anybody more than you should ever love God. Right. Mm-hmm. As a 5-year-old, that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Right. As a 5-year-old, I go, what's around me? My parents.
Mm-hmm.
My parents love me. I love my parents.
Yeah.
They're here. They protect me. They provide for me. I'm not going to love God more than I love my parents. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I haven't met this guy yet.
Yeah. Right. But at the same time, I knew not to say that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept this thought in my head. And I don't think I ever like expressed it to anybody. So it was just one of those things, like I grappled with it internally.
Yeah.
For years.
And and that causes a problem.
Yeah, and it causes problems.
You don't feel like you have anybody that you can really kind of relay this to.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm kind of feeling this way about this thing. Within that group, you know that you're not going to get, oh, well, that's, everybody feels that way. Or, do you want to kind of explore that thought a little bit? It's always, well, you're going to hell.
Yeah.
That's what you always get.
Yeah. And I think too, with my experience with ego death, was that it allows me to be more sincere about my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if I have a thought that comes in my head, I try to like address it immediately. I try to. It doesn't happen all the time. I try to make a conscious effort to do it. Sometimes it's really hard. You can't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, but now it's like I'm older and it's like I really don't give a fuck anymore. Like I don't care. So I'll just say it. No matter how uncomfortable it makes me or the person that I'm talking to, because it's like I did it as a kid where I didn't express what I thought or what my feelings were about a certain subject or whatever. Mm-hmm. Right. So I try not to come off as like pretentious or like a jackass when I say something. But at the same time, like if I'm having a thought or whatever, like I'll express it and I'll be like, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. It's I think that a lot of, I don't know if I want to say religious leaders, but a lot of the people who are preaching my faith are of that old world style of preaching.
Yeah.
And we live in I think we live in a society now where, well, yeah. I mean, memeing aside, we live in a society now where I think people are more inclined to ask questions. And I think that's a good thing. And I think that a lot of the, religious quote unquote leaders nowadays, the people who are preaching the message of Christ kind of feel like it's very dangerous for people to ask questions.
Oh, I
you know
agree.
what?
Yeah,
it may-
I feel that they feel the same way.
Yeah. It may not be because, they don't want to be in a position where they don't have the answers, or they don't want to be in a position where they have to admit that they don't have the answers. I think that they're worried that people will
Stray from the faith.
yeah, they'll lean into their logical side and kind of write everything off. Now, like I said, I have core values and beliefs that I really am like, this kind of like my rock.
Yeah.
And that's what I base my beliefs off of. But like I said, at the same time, the logical side of me, I'm not ignoring it anymore. I'm not writing it off as, these intrusive thoughts. And, if I have a question about something or something like that, I'll look into it.
Well, I think it's important too that it's okay to have the questions and everything, right? So one of the things that I think really helps is that, like you, I have certain thoughts about, the way that life is, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Like my view on like murder and all that kind of stuff. Like, I understand that it's bad. That's a universal truth, right?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't murder an innocent person. Like, if you do it in self-defense, that's one thing, right?
Right.
But if you just haul off and like whack somebody over the head with a fucking claw hammer and
Yeah.
kill them, then
I feel like that's, it's everybody can agree that's fucked up.
yeah, absolutely, right? So I want to say that experiencing ego death, but having like a religious grounding, like something to kind of stand on while
Mhm.
experiencing it, like, it's helpful, right? So you're looking around at all of this. Essentially, it's like you see it as like make believe almost.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you still feel like there's certain things that are real,
Yeah.
right? Like there's still certain things that I feel that are very real.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there's things that I have experienced that, I contribute to my faith. And I really believe it. So it's not some, one of those instances where we're like, okay, was it really, or was it this? But I can definitely understand why people look at religion the way they do nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, aside from the fact that you kind of have to suspend your disbelief to accept a lot of it, and not just Christianity, really any religion.
Oh yeah.
But also, I think people are very cynical of it because religion has been used as a tool in the wrong way. Yeah, for probably longer than it hasn't been used for that.
Oh yeah. It's been used to grab power.
Oh yeah, and I completely understand why people are adverse to it the way they are. I mean, there's I think the immediate thought is when people hear me say that I'm a Christian, is immediately they think, okay, well, right off the bat, this guy hates gay people.
Yeah. Right, because that's the stigma that's attached to it.
That's the stigma that's attached to it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the Bible doesn't say that a man should not lay with another man the way he lays with a woman.
Yeah.
It does say that. That's in there. Those words are in there. But my logical side says, okay, that your sexual urges are born of those physical and chemical reactions in your brain.
Yes.
I don't have homosexual urges, but homosexual man does. We're both having chemical and physical reactions in our brain, but we're experiencing different things.
Yeah, you're experiencing life through a different lens.
Yeah. It's like, why is it for me to say that he's wrong? And there's a whole thing about, well, gay people can't make babies. No, they can't. But you're not making a baby when you fucking jerk off.
Yeah,
You know, so it's
that's
like,
true.
yeah. So I mean, sexual gratification is, separate from reproduction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, I don't
I
know.
mean,
It's
how,
like
I
I said, it's
mean,
one of those things that my logical side grappled with for a long time before
Yeah,
I finally came to the decision. It doesn't matter.
well, I mean, married couples have sex all the time, not for reproduction.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's recreational.
Yeah. And there are, if you want to say it's unnatural, well, there's animals that
Do the
have
same thing.
sex recreationally.
Yeah.
There's animals that have homosexual sex, and animals are about as natural as it gets.
Yeah, and the thing is too is that I feel like not having like a religious grounding or whatever, it certainly could become nihilistic. It certainly could cause like an identity crisis. It could make you question reality itself,
yeah,
right? But I feel like for myself, it's like I have a feeling strong enough to know that it's not just this.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's not just what I'm looking at. It's not just this computer screen I'm looking at. It's not just this house that I'm sitting in.
mm-hmm.
It's something else.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody that doesn't believe that, I feel like they're more predisposed to becoming nihilistic about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And nihilism is something else that I've struggled with too. It's like, especially like as soon as you're a teenager and you learn about learn about entropy and the inevitable heat death of the universe.
Oh yeah.
It's like well, none of this matters. Everything's going to return to nothing eventually. The universe is going to stop expanding. All the stars are eventually going to burn out. This, that, and the other. So what does anything I do matter?
Yeah.
Well, the simple fact that you even have that thought means that what you're doing matters. You are existing. You're a part of reality.
Yeah.
What you're doing matters.
Yeah. It matters that you're here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, a little bit of nihilism, like a splash of nihilism, like the splash of HIV that's in the coronavirus vaccine. I think a little bit of it's healthy. I think it's healthy to understand that you are a speck on the cosmic scale. But at the same time,
it keeps you from being self-righteous.
Yeah. At the same time, that doesn't mean that you need to base your entire, personality off of that.
No.
Because then if that's the case,
then you're no fun at parties.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, what's to stop you from, going and lighting your neighbor on fire?
Yeah.
You probably
there's no consequences.
Even if you believe that nothing really matters, you're probably still not going to go do that.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then why aren't you going to go do that? There's something else there.
Yeah, there's a universal truth that's there that you're not exploring. It's just like there's a lot of different subsets to it, right? So I don't think it's something that you get all the answers from, like if the first time you experience it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those things where it's continued. It's like continued introspection.
Yeah,
I guess
that's something that
the
we
best
talk about.
way to really describe it.
Yeah, that's something that we talk about a lot on this podcast is introspection, and I feel like the reason me and you bring it up a lot is because we have both realized that introspection is it's
probably the most important tool you could ever have.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's like, as you go through life, you have all these experiences and these things that happen. And just, say you're collecting them in a bag. You got this big bag of experiences and you're just dragging it behind you. It's important to, every so often turn around and look in that bag and kind of take inventory of what you got.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, is you can obviously tell there's certain people that that have not ever had that thought cross their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we're related to a few.
Yeah. Or like most of our elected officials.
Yeah.
Like Trump.
Mm. Oh my
I don't
God.
think that guy's
Look.
ever been introspective in his life.
Look, Donald Trump. I'm not like, a hardcore anti-Trump guy or whatever.
No,
But
I'm not either, but I can definitely
Donald
say
Trump
without a doubt.
is the least introspective person
Oh,
to
yeah,
have
absolutely.
ever existed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's like an unstoppable force. He just keeps moving forward.
Yeah.
Like no matter what comes
You
up,
wanna
he just
talk about-
plows through it.
Oh, yeah. Listen, if that guy ever experienced ego death, that would be the end of him.
Oh yeah, he would like crumble away into dust.
He would just stop existing.
He was funny. I feel like a lot of his problem was that he just couldn't shut up,
Oh, yeah. He doesn't know
and
when
he
to shut
couldn't
his
let
mouth,
anything
right?
go.
Yeah.
Like anytime he was slighted, it was like this big, huge problem
Oh, yeah.
that he just beat into the ground and then he moved on. I mean, in some ways it's admirable, but it's like not when you're the president.
Yeah, no. Yeah, when you're running a company, that's fine. But
Yeah,
dude,
when you're
you
running the
can't-
country,
yeah,
not
you
so
can-
much. He was so funny.
Oh,
Those
yeah,
4
yeah.
years, that was the wackiest time. Every day. I mean, it was like every day. It was like, what did he do?
Well, and I was saying this to somebody else the other day. It was the reason why people liked him so much, I think, is because he took complex topics and made them really easy to understand by using really stupid words.
Yeah. Which is it's not a great thing all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Some things are complicated because they need to be
Because they need to
complicated.
be complicated. Oh, goodness.
One of
It'd
my
be fun to
favorite-
have him on the podcast and start talking
Oh,
about
dude.
ego death. That'd be crazy.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite things he ever did was like for Cinco de Mayo, he took that picture of himself eating a taco salad.
Oh, God.
An introspective person would have never
Oh,
done
no.
that. Never.
No.
God, he was a hoot.
Right. It's just like, it's so ironic, right? That he would do that.
Yeah.
It's like, he's like putting on this face, this like ironic face or whatever,
Yeah.
so that he can continue to operate under,
I love that
under
picture
his
too.
ego.
I love that picture too because like it doesn't look like he had eaten any of it. And so like I feel like they took that picture and
Yeah,
they,
they like
threw
took it away and he ate a hamburger.
Yeah, he ate his. God, did you ever see that thing that it was what he orders at McDonald's? It was like
Oh,
two
yeah.
fish fillets, a Big Mac, a Diet Coke, all this shit, like a vanilla milkshake
Yeah, and a Diet Coke.
and a Diet Coke.
Did you ever see the picture? It was like after University of Alabama won the national championship, and they brought him all in. They served him McDonald's.
Yes, they served them McDonald's, Wendy's, Arby's, and Taco Bell. It was such a fucking crazy thing to see too, because you had like all this like presidential like ornate
Yeah,
like opulent
cutlery and,
silverware
yeah.
and cutlery and like all these like fancy stands, and then there's just fucking Big Macs piled around it.
Oh yeah, like if I would have been on the team, I'll just burst out laughing. I'd be like, "This is ridiculous."
Which is funny too, because some of the guys they talked to some of those athletes and they were like, "Oh man, it was great. We ate like fucking kings." But I
Just
know
as
that
many as you want.
yeah, that was more for Trump than it was for them.
Oh yeah,
You'll never convince
absolutely.
me otherwise.
No. Well, it's getting pretty late here. I gotta probably start getting my daughter ready for bed here pretty soon.
Okay.
But I thought this was an interesting podcast.
It was. We touched on a bit deeper subject than we usually do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys like that, I mean, I would certainly be willing to
Yeah.
touch on deeper subjects and stuff like that. That was
Yeah,
I
me
thought
too.
it was absolutely a very fascinating podcast.
Yeah, it's fun to have to think about things that are a little bit, beyond the normal things you think about during your everyday.
Well, it's nice to get a break from just the normal stuff that everybody's pre-consumed with.
Yeah.
Like all the social justice stuff and just
Yeah. The things that
are
are in your face every day.
yeah, the things that are in your face every day. I think that it's important that people try at least try to be introspective a little bit. Take yourself out of your own shoes. Examine yourself as
Yeah.
you exist, but not as yourself. And that's really hard to do.
Mhm.
But if you understand what I'm saying, give it a shot.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, everybody listening, you should definitely look into ego death. It's very interesting. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, you just kind of read about it, watch some videos. There's plenty of stuff out there. You'll walk away with a different understanding than I did and a different understanding than Wes does.
And that, I think it would be really awesome if the podcast got big enough that we had the opportunity to interview somebody that really understood what that is.
Somebody who could kind of
Has a
water
better
it down a
grasp
little
on
bit.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way for the podcast to get big is if you share it.
Ooh. Share, like, and subscribe
Share,
on your favorite podcast.
Smash that like button, as they say.
And these are our egos coming back.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Steven Stout for sharing our podcast the other day. Really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It really does help.
It does. And thank you to everybody else who's been listening ever since day one. I don't know. I couldn't get all your names, I'm sure, but Zachary Kilgore and Jordan Lee Huffer and
Dylan Dobbs,
all those guys. Y'all are great. Y'all are amazing. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. We could not continue to do this without support from the people that listen.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Missy, who is Allison's cousin, listens to us all the time.
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Missy. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Shout out to you.
Also, right quick before we go, I am in the process of getting our YouTube page up and running. I'm going to have all of our episodes that we've released so far uploaded there, and I'm trying. Going forward, I'll try to release them on YouTube alongside our normal release schedule.
Yeah, and I think
let me back up. We don't have a normal release schedule. What I meant to say was
we're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on having that.
Yes,
but as I'll release them I'll put them up on YouTube as they go live on Apple Podcasts and other things. So we're gonna branch into YouTube soon, and then maybe we'll just have all different kinds of content coming out.
Yeah, that'd be really nice it'd be nice to be able to maybe stream a Zoom podcast to YouTube or something. Or maybe if we can get next time that we're together in the same room to do a podcast, we can record it or maybe stream it live. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I've been looking into ways to do that, and I've been looking at getting us a nice webcam for that purpose.
Awesome.
So big things coming.
Big things coming. Be on the lookout.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for listening. We hope you've enjoyed yourselves. And Wesley, do you have anything else to say?
I do not.
Alrighty. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.